Welcome in, everybody. Welcome to the ninth Without a Map live stream for the In My Footsteps podcast. I'm getting better at doing live streams. It starts on time. I actually sound like I know what I'm doing, relatively. So hopefully, Landon, you're the first one in. I just started, so you haven't missed anything good yet, although you've heard all my jokes before. My nephew Landon is who I'm talking to. I first have to realize that when this gets re-aired on IGTV, on YouTube, and everywhere else, the reboots here, you can't see who's in the chat. So I've noticed that I interact with people that are in the chat, but then if you're watching this later on, you have no clue what the hell I'm doing, because I'll see someone say something and I'll say, "Oh yeah, that's funny." It's like, well, I got to share it for the people that watch this later that don't know what it is. So normally what I do with these is, for anyone who's never ever heard of what this is, why I do it. So I call these Without a Map. They're kind of an addition to my In My Footsteps podcast that I do Friday nights at 8, just like this. And it's more interactive. It's more in the way of seeing who's listened to the podcast. I give a little more detail into the most recent episode. And then I go into, I always say it's without a map. I don't have a plan or notes. I have kind of bullet points. So it can tend to go off the rails in a good way. But for a quick recap of what it is, my podcast is called In My Footsteps. I am from Cape Cod, Massachusetts, 12th generation Cape Codder. So the podcast is a lot of New England history and travel. And as it's evolved, the most recent episode was 17. As it's evolved, I've gotten more into lifestyle topics, fun and entertaining, maybe insightful if I know what I'm talking about, and a healthy chunk of 1980s and 90s nostalgia, because I find myself more and more now as I'm in my 40s wanting to relive those days rather than live these days. So it's fun to research and share stuff from back then. Like, for example, episode 17. Hello, Lulu. So my sister Lindsay is in the chat, and I totally don't realize that I'm just live here. It's like I'm just talking just to her. So yeah, that's where that high pitched came from. So episode 17, which just went live yesterday, as far as retro topics, I did a whole segment about embarrassing / funny old school sleepover stories, because everyone growing up slept at friends' houses, and I'm sure not all of them were just perfect examples of, hanging out. I had one where my cat came downstairs in among all of my friends. I think it was on my birthday, and gave birth right in front of all of us 8 or 9 year old little boys. So, that's just an example of the things that I find myself sharing now, which is kind of ironic, because growing up, was never a public speaker, for sure. And I never thought that things that were happening would end up then being out there in the universe. Because the podcast, you can go back to any of the first 17 episodes and find all of the random foolishness that I've shared. For anyone that hasn't heard of it before right now, I began it in November of last year. And the idea for it came after I actually quit drinking alcohol. That was a big problem. I address it in episode 16. I kind of give my reasonings, etc. But literally right after I stopped drinking, this idea for the podcast popped into my head, where it's like everybody has things that they're knowledgeable on. And I've come to realize that doing a podcast, I'm not going to say it's easy, but I'm going to say that anyone can do it if you have something you're passionate about. I just happen to love history and the travel and sharing my own stories and such. But anyone can do that. Like my sister Lindsay in the chat is great at gardening, and I believe she could easily do her own gardening podcast. And that's just, but the thing is, it's also having time and if you want to do research and such. And I've started to learn people like the storytelling aspect of a podcast more so than, I guess, lecture. I don't try to lecture when I do these. I try to make it where it's more like this. I'm trying to make the podcast more like the live stream, except a little more organized. So I don't know if anyone listened to episode 17 or if you've listened to any of these podcasts. They're available anywhere you get your podcast. So I usually have photographic, whatever you call it there, like there. So I've gotten better with the live streams in learning how to incorporate photography, a visual aid. So the podcast, that logo was created by an old friend of mine, Amy Keller Jump. She's a great graphic designer, and she came up with that in about 3 seconds. I said, the footstep, I like the footprint idea, and I'm going to be talking about all of New England, but I'm from Cape Cod. And she's just like, here you go. I'm like, how did you do that? She's like, it's my job. So episode 17, I talk about friendlies. Friendlies is still around, but, you know, it's kind of trending downward. And so I share a lot of my positive memories from friendlies. I found old menus. And so I was reading these 1980s menus and remembering the names of some of the items. Like my chicken tenders and French fries that I used to get when I was a kid. It was called the Chicken Lickin' plate on the kids menu. And they had like things like the Jim Dandy Sundae or the Fishamajig or oh dang it, what was the other one that I was talking about? Oh, and Fribble, just the milkshake. These were things I hadn't heard those terms in forever. Yeah, Landon says Friendlies is a throwback. Yeah, it is. I never thought growing up in the 1980s that a lot of things that I saw every day would just be fading away, like Friendlies, but also like Sears and Kmart or Woolworths. Anyone remember Woolworths? They were in the mall. Places like that they seem like they'd last forever, and I guess in some ways they did. And I do road trips for the podcast where I pick a place in New England and I expand on it and share why you should go there. Kind of like a teaser. So I did Nantucket. That's the one. So Nantucket. See, I have all my photos. Yeah, see? I do individual cards for each episode. So they're kind of unique. It helps me remember what's in each episode. So that I found that a lot of podcasters that have hundreds and hundreds of episodes can remember what they talked about. They can just say, oh, episode 258, I talked about this. It's like, I'm pretty good at that, but I don't know. So that was episode 17. Episode 18, so I do 3 weeks on and 1 week off. I need kind of a buffer week it's like reloading to do the next 3 podcasts. So episode 18 won't be until May 6th. And that one, I did a poll a few weeks ago on Instagram, Twitter, probably not Facebook, but just those two. And a choice between 2 pieces of Cape Cod history, and you had to pick one that you wanted to hear me talk about. The winner was the old Storyland amusement park that was in Hyannis. So for anyone that's not familiar with it, Storyland essentially was like a Mother Goose nursery rhyme type amusement park from the mid-50s through most of the 1960s, where the Cape Cod Mall stands. So imagine that whole area just being trees, just trees, with a parking lot, and you had to walk through the woods to these little, like the old woman that lived in a shoe, or there's Little Red Riding Hood's house or whatever. So that's the one that won the poll. I don't want to share the other one that lost because basically I'll end up doing that one at some point anyway. And I don't want you to listen to the podcast and say, no, that's the loser topic. But then, so for my nephew Landon, who is an excellent baseball player already, he's going to appreciate that episode 18 I've got the logo for. I'm going to share my history, I guess, with Little League because it kind of got me in the mood to talk about it. And like when I do these live streams, I don't like to put a lot of spoilers if you haven't listened. I like to do teasers because I'd rather you go listen to the episode and hear all about it. But I realize I can't just say, trust me, go listen, it's good. And so I'll share one Little League story that will prime the pump to get you to listen when that podcast comes up. I was usually a first baseman when I played. And any kid that plays baseball, they want to be A, great hitter, and B, they want to pitch. I mean, I would say most of them do. Everyone I knew did. So I begged and begged and begged my coach. I said, I just want to pitch. And so he finally relented and he let me pitch the one and only game I ever pitched in baseball ever. And here's why. A, I wasn't good, but B, there was a kid that got up to the plate and I didn't have that great a control, which was obvious because I threw a pitch and I hit him right in the helmet. Wham! And, I mean, in the helmet, so he wasn't hurt. And he took his base. Next time around that he came up, threw a pitch, wham, right in the helmet again. So I hit the same kid in the head twice in the same game. And he was a kid I knew. So afterwards, he took the helmet off and he looked at me. He's like, what did I do? Because he thought I hit him on purpose. Needless to say, I was never allowed to pitch again. Although legend has it that if we hadn't lost our first playoff game, I may have been in line to pitch for the next playoff game in Little League, which would have been a disaster. I'd have ruined it for everyone else on the team. But yeah, that's part of episode 18. So, in addition to speaking about the podcast, this week there's another thing that came up, and so I've got a visual aid. So my 6th book, the author copies arrived. If you've been tuning into these live streams the last few weeks, I've been posting the photo image of the cover. And so it actually came. And so I don't know how to, like, I'm not going to read from the book. Don't worry. It's not going to turn into like Reading Rainbow where I start talking about each chapter. But this book details a lot of the major hotels, resorts. I mean, it says hotels and motels, but when I think of motel, I think of like less than reputable places that are just kind of... No kidding. All right. Chillin' Dot. They're in Cape Cod, in New Orleans next weekend. So whereabouts? Are you familiar with the area? Because I'm one that I love the travel bit to say, oh, you should go check out, obviously, Rock Harbor in Orleans is an excellent place. It's an awesome sunset spot. If you go to Rock Harbor, there's 2 sides. The Orleans side, but if you go to the secret side that's on the Eastham side of the water, nobody's ever there. In fact, Nauset Beach. Okay. So you're near Nauset Beach. Have you ever driven all the way out as far as the Nauset Spit, like the dunes, like going south from the parking lot? Because I don't know if it's there right now, but there's a shipwreck in the dunes called the Well, I can show you what it is actually. While I'm scrolling through my photos. People that are looking now, it looks like I'm just kind of waving at. The Montclair is the name of the shipwreck. That's the funny thing, is that I can't find. So I went out there once. It's about 2 miles south of the parking lot, and there's a shipwreck there. And of course, it's buried way in my. I have thousands of photos on my phone, so I apologize for not being able to find it for you. But the Montclair is way the heck out there. It's mostly bones, as in like bolts and such. When I find it, you'll see. I swear I have a photo of it. I'm scrolling through and it's just like, good Lord. Some of these photos all look the same too, which is kind of like, why did I even bother? But I love photography. There we go. Thank you. So, you can see it in the corner. There's this shipwreck. Tyler Setterlund? He may be the one that he's a follower. Like, we follow each other on Instagram. My nephew's asking me about a teacher. Gave me a book I think you would like. What is it, mine? That would be funny. This guy has a book like me. But yeah, that shipwreck on the screen is probably 2 miles south of the parking lot. And sometimes it gets washed over. Sometimes it's more revealed. That's just one of those. I walked out there with my buddy Steve. This was a year ago, last February, right before the world went to hell. And we went out there and got a bunch of photos. I'll do a segment on the Montclair at some point on the podcast. But yeah, that's just... I have all the obscure places to go see. I just say, instead of going to a normal spot. Yes, south towards Chatham is where you would find that. You have to go out on the beach and just head south in the sand. So what I do with book launches is the same that I do with the births of nieces and nephews. So this here, I've got 6 books, 6 nieces and nephews. So they each kind of get one. This is dedicated to all of them. So Landon, if you see, you won't see it, but their names are all in there. I think it's right there. Proof that you're in there. But what I would always do was get a cigar and get a shot of Fireball and go somewhere and kind of celebrate the launch of a book or the birth of a child in the family. Since I don't drink anymore, it's been 8 months, I think now. What I decided to do was get CBD. This is CBD cider this time instead of seltzer. And I need to do this. Would have been funny if it exploded and the bottle cap went rolling, but whatever. So I'm celebrating with this. It's Auto brand. It's pretty good. It's like apples and such in it. So cheers. That's to book 6. And so what's going to end up happening is May 24th is the release date. Oh, thank you very much, Chili. Thank you. May 24th is going to be a book launch live stream because I can't do an event because the world is crap still. I mean, maybe late summer, but whatever. So what I'm going to do is it's a Monday and at 7:30 I'm going to pop on with this. I've got visual aids. I'll share more about what the book is about and such, and maybe hopefully do Q&A. The book launches that I did were always fun. I had my notes and Q&A and a PowerPoint presentation. I was never a public speaker. Even something like this, like a live stream, I'd be terrified because there's no net. if something went wrong, like I've had live streams cut out because of Wi-Fi going out, but I got kind of forced to learn how to. It's like trial by fire. And when I first did my first book events, I didn't have a PowerPoint presentation. I would, and this is not a lie, I would stand up in front of people at a library, bookstore, whatever, with my book, and I would be, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. So this is the site of, and I would show it, and I'd walk around, and I would, hi, Mom. My mom is in the chat now. So I'm talking about the book right here. But what I would do was, it was like fifth grade show and tell. Looking at what I did then compared to how things are now, it's like no contest. You kind of learn on the fly what works, what doesn't work. So I also, in hopes of adding more eyes and ears on my podcast that I've been working on, I started a Buy Me a Coffee page. If you haven't heard of that, it's similar to Patreon, where you can donate money to a content creator. Because I do podcasts, I do obviously live streams, YouTube videos that are, I got 4K New England up there. I do segments of the podcast I make into like these big visual presentations, and I do blogs. So you can donate, etc. Now my sister Ashley's in the chat. So it's Ashley, Lindsay, my mom, my nephew Landon. Beautiful. Family always represents. I got to make sure I say that. That's why you're all thanked in the book. Ah, you're not too late. I started right on time, so 21 minutes. You can only do an hour live stream before they shut you off. It's like flicking the lights on and off at a bar. So the Buy Me a Coffee deal is, oh no, Chili, I know you're there. Wait, are you family? Because, so basically, that's what I was going to say. Don't worry. I appreciate, like, a lot of people come in and not as many chat in there. So I like it when they do, because it's like, it breaks up my stream of consciousness, because I come in like, I got to hit all these points, because if I sit here and I look at the chat, or I feel like people are going to be like, oh, this guy, he's so amateur. I'm out of here. But getting back, so the Buy Me a Coffee deal, I got my sister Kate and me. Christopher Setterlund. It's backwards. Is it backwards to you guys? Yeah, well. My last name is Swedish, and I don't speak Swedish. But I had my sister Kate and one of my oldest friends, John. They donated on Buy Me a Coffee, and I was like, whoa, I wasn't expecting that. So what I'm doing is reinvesting in the podcast by turning those donations into Facebook ads, hoping to get more people to check out the podcast. And then it just cycles from there. Hopefully, because it's a passion project. That's the bottom line. Oh, now we got Emma. So now my niece Emma's in here. Emma is basically a genius child. She's in college at New Haven, Connecticut. When I was young, I was smart. I laugh at that. My podcast is called the In My Footsteps podcast. So hold on, I'm gonna try to pop you up the logo for it. So it's that footprint there. Oh yeah. Everything in New England I hit on. That's the whole, I even say it at the beginning of podcasts. I say, I'm from Cape Cod, but I represent all of the New England states. In fact, episode 18, I do a road trip to this little town in Vermont, Middlebury. They got a college there that's pretty cool, but it's a place that I'm doing my research. I'm like, I want to share that because I hadn't heard of it, but I became a big fan of it just through the research. So, yeah, so when I was young, I like took my SATs when I was 13, and I was supposed to be, top percentile for brains or whatever. Obviously, so I was saying my niece Emma is similar, except she actually kept working hard and actually is doing something in a more meaningful way. I love the content creation and the creativity. That's my thing. And I've wanted to be a writer since I was in second grade, but there are other people that are doing way more important things. Yeah, I used to be. I never share my past achievements with scholastics because basically people will then say to me, "Well, what happened to you now?" I worked in restaurants for years and I'd never say anything like that. I would just play dumb because they'd be like, "Oh, you're cooking now though, so what happened to you?" Yeah, so the podcast is my passion project. 4K New England, as I was talking about, is I travel to places and, you know, shoot video. I put them up on YouTube. The most recent one was Fort Revere in Hull, which was pretty cool. Another passion of mine is personal training, and I'm starting at some point to do a course on medical fitness specialist to go along with my personal trainer certification. And it's been bumped back a couple times. It was supposed to start the end of March. So I left my last job that was terrible and toxic and said, hey, I'll take this class, jump back into training either in people's homes or at a gym or whatever. The class got bumped back to the middle of April. Here we are near the end, and it's still... Whereabouts in Connecticut, Chill, did you grow up in? I'm not as familiar. Obviously, my niece Emma's in New Haven. When I've done travel writing and done my photo trips, I've gone as far as... Is it Old Saybrook? Old Saybrook is like 3 hours from me. I have found that you drive much further than that, and you're just irritated from being in the car and you don't want to take photos. Okay. Hey, I did Hartford in a recent episode of the podcast. I did an actual road trip thing for Hartford. And so, hi, Krista. So Krista is one of my favorite people that I've ever worked with. And we worked together at a retirement home. And she is... Dang it, where is it? She's thanked in my book. And I'm trying to find it so quick. Yeah, she's right there. Name is right there. It's backwards. But yeah, you're thanked in the book. I thanked a bunch of Mayflower people in there, and then my recent dumpster fire job, I didn't thank anyone there. I just thanked them for me not slapping the hell out of them. But yeah, the Hartford one, I researched some places, and I recorded most of it. And then I realized it was like one of the places I talked about was out of business. I'm glad I kind of double checked because I would have basically put a podcast out and said, go to this place and it wouldn't exist. And it's like, that's nice. Good on me. So medical fitness specialist, I'm not sure what it means as far as my personal training goes. Basically, I think I can work kind of hand in hand with doctors because it's going to be helping people with... Cheers. See, I got my drink. I'm celebrating the release of my book. It's the first time I haven't had a shot and a cigar with it. Here it is, like, yeah, I'm trying to be responsible. It's CBD seltzer. It's pretty good. I wanted to get the Race Point seltzer because we follow each other on here, but I was running low on time. Snapple. Yes, Landon, it looks like Snapple, but it's not. It's hopped apple. Yay. So has anyone been, like, last week was the first time I've been out of the state of Massachusetts in 500 days. In fact, the last time that I went out of the state was when I did my big road trip in 2019. I will follow you. I'll follow you right when I wish I had a thing to write it down, but if you, so this is a tease, but if you like this video, you'll pop up in my notifications, and then I'll go and I will follow you back. Yeah, the podcast, I love doing that type of stuff, sharing all of this. And I know I've come around to the idea that you need to build your audience. I've listened to a lot of other podcasters, especially like them talking about how they've built their audience and how they've marketed the podcast, how they have dealt with setbacks. Because I'll do episodes that I think are going to be just blow up. I did one, episode 15. I did a celebration of life for my Nina, who recently passed away. And I thought it was going to just explode. And it didn't do as well as I thought with downloads. And it kind of got me down because I'm like, oh my God, this is something I was really passionate about. But in reality, you got to kind of, I came from nothing. I started this in November. And even though I have books and I've got a, nice social media presence, you've still got to kind of earn the trust of listeners. Make sure they know that you're doing something that's worth following. I even try to make history interesting. I love history. Not everyone does. So I do segments called This Week in History. And I do a lot of research where I try to find interesting things that span, all walks of life. Like episode 16 last week was the wreck of the Titanic and the assassination of Abraham Lincoln were the same day, I think. So that was an easy one. But I like to try to put at least one local topic in there each week. And it's funny, every time I research, the main stuff I will find has to do with murders. And I like sharing the true crime stuff, but I try to save it for towards Halloween because I'm not a true crime podcast. But it's literally always murders that I find. There was actually one in Waterbury, Connecticut. Chill, that might speak to you. That's coming in episode 18. And there's a murder from 1890. And I'm reading this old newspaper from New Haven. And I'm like, oh my God, it's like these two friends go into a bar and they're having a pint. And one of the friends just gets up and shoots his friend in the face 6 times. And I'm like, okay. But that's literally, it's just like, oh my God. It's a pretty good story. I had to do a lot of research because he got sentenced to death, this guy, Patrick Flanagan. But then I couldn't find the record of his execution. So it took me forever. I'm like, oh, this is a good story, but I can't leave it open-ended. And it turned out he died of tuberculosis before he got hung. So I will be doing something on P.T. Barnum, definitely. But yeah, I went out of state for the first time in 500 days. And I went to Rhode Island because it's right there. And it's pretty nice. There's this little town, Little Compton. It's like all farmland, which is great. I like that kind of stuff. This all circles back to my 4K New England stuff. Has anyone out there been over the Mount Hope Bridge in Bristol, Rhode Island? I got a photo of it, so that's an easier one to find. That's the Mount Hope Bridge. And I came this way towards the right and did some stuff. I went to Colt State Park in Bristol. And on the way back, I said, oh, I got to cross the bridge again. I said, oh, that would be awesome to shoot a 4K video driving over the bridge. And I have this thing where I think of my buddy Steve, and I call it dedication to the craft, getting this awesome photo before any problems that may occur. So the whole idea is I'm at the set of lights that's, a couple hundred yards before the start of the bridge. And I grab my camera out of the bag, turn it on, put it on video, and I'm driving. And I've got the camera. So I'm driving over this bridge that's 150 feet above sea level. And it's a 2-lane bridge. And I'm driving and I'm filming a video of driving over the bridge. And only when I got done did I think about, what if, someone, like I jerked the wheel or something and I went over the side. But oh my goodness. So that was I posted that on Instagram a few days ago, the video, and it's got music to it. I don't have it on my phone anymore because they take up room, but I put music to it. Dedication to the craft. It's also known as doing stupid things to get photos that usually don't matter, but whatever. So the book, Iconic Hotels and Motels of Cape Cod, it's through the History Press, which is them right there. You can pre-order it. It comes out May 24th. And like I said, I'm going to do the book launch live stream, which will be a lot of fun. It'll be similar to this, but it'll be almost entirely book-centric. Oh, don't worry, Landon. I'm doing the live stream for Instagram. Or do you mean like doing videos where I almost kill myself for Instagram? Because that might happen at some point. I'm not young anymore, so some of my stupidity is now it's going to where it's not cute anymore. But the book is also, it's going to be on Amazon. And I have my own website, ChristopherSetterlund.com. That is run and maintained by my oldest friend, Barry Menard, who, he's a great graphic designer and he still takes the time to edit. You just wait. So to my nephew, Landon, he's going to get into photography. And I just got okayed for a new book number 7. And it's called American Photographers Cape Cod. It's a new series, and I'm going to have to go and take a lot of new photos for the book, so you may have to come and learn some of the craft. You'll be like the grasshopper, take the stone from my hand. I also have 2 cameras that are Nana's. If you need a camera or want a camera, just saying, I have my own, so these ones just kind of sit and don't do anything. So, all right, so let me know, or I'll bring them both over to Nana's. I'll bring both cameras over there if you want to choose one. But hopefully anyone who, this will go, like I've said, it goes up on IGTV immediately when I'm done. I literally put it right up there. And it goes on Twitter, YouTube, to try to get as much views on it. Because I figure the more people see me yapping about my stuff, the more chance they may check out the podcast, might like it, might tell others to listen. And that's how you build your audience. I can share my stuff until I'm blue in the face. But when other people independent of me share it and say, oh, it's good, you should check it out, that's where it matters. Because I'm always going to say my stuff's good. I'm going to say, next episode's the best podcast ever. It's not, but I'll say it. So yeah, it's going to go up on IGTV, YouTube. And when I put it on YouTube, I do chapters. meaning you can skip along, because like you've seen, I branch off topics and I try to bring it back around, but sometimes it doesn't work. So I put in chapters that kind of will tie a segment together. So I hope that you go and check out the podcast, or go on, I mean, YouTube, it's the same. Everything I post is either In My Footsteps is the name, or it's Christopher Setterlund is the name. And it's all out there to find. I've got a lot of content creation. That's great. I love doing that. The books, the blogs, the videos. And I'm going to keep going. Like next Friday, I'll have another live stream. Fridays at 8. That'll be number 10. And they're getting easier, as in like the setup. Like I have a pretty good setup where everything is less free flowing. It's easier than doing them out on a remote location, because you're at the mercy of any Wi-Fi, which I think my second live stream I did got cut off by there being no Wi-Fi twice. So I'd just be talking and it would just shut off. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And then I did it a second time, and I think I was right about, like right now I'm about to sign off and it shut off again and it erased it. And if I had hair, I'd have ripped it out. But thank you so much for tuning in on a Friday night and enjoying a little glimpse of this book and my celebration. It's different than, this is the first time it hasn't been a cigar and a fireball with it. In fact, I wonder if I could find, my last book came out 2 years ago. So there may be a chance that I could find you the photo of the last time I had a book come out. I actually had I took a picture of the fireball and the cigar. I was at a beach. I was at Crosby Beach in Brewster, if anyone's been there. I'm scrolling through photos. I thought this would pop up on the screen when doing it, and then I watched it back and it wasn't there. And I said that it looks so weird for me to just be staring but not seeing you people. Just see. We're getting close, I swear. There it is. That's what my normal celebration would be. I remember that it was 6:30, 7 o'clock. Sat up in the dunes and smoked my cigar, did my fireball, and just kind of, yeah, it's perfect combo if you do it once every blue moon, but not me. Fireball was too much of a crutch. That's why I don't drink anymore. But that was my celebrations. Every time a niece or a nephew was born, so that means literally Emma and Landon, when you guys were born, I had those things. I would go to the beach and be like, yay, celebrate. Let's smoke and drink. And since I don't have any kids, I did it the same for when my books would come out. Like, I got a new book. Let's smoke and drink. And so I'm changing up. I'm getting wiser with older age. Unfortunately, you can't stop that. But if you haven't checked out the podcast, it's everywhere. Most of my downloads come from Apple Podcasts. Fireball is like a cinnamon whiskey. So it's good. It's one of those things that it's become almost cliche, that it was like popular, and now it's like jump the shark popular, where everyone's like, oh, I got to get Fireball. And it's like, yeah, well, I'm not one that I can't. Well, my drink was always vodka. I hate beer. I can't drink the hoppy beer. So I would drink vodka because you get the nips, takes less to get you to a nice buzz, and it's cheaper. That was always my reasoning. And that's the reason why I would drink every night for months and months and months, because it was just cheap and easy. Two good things, I guess. I used to drink every night for many months. And, the alcoholic gene runs in my family, and it didn't really get triggered until I passed 40. And that when you're 40 and you drink all the time, it's not cute. It's not like when you're in your 20s and it's like, yeah, I'm celebrating being young. It's like, no, I'm middle aged and I'm sitting on my couch drinking vodka. Jesus Christ, the hell kind of life is that? But yeah, I'm not one of those anti-alcohol people. I have no moderation. I have an addictive personality. Hooray. But this stuff isn't addictive. It's just CBD weed without the THC. That's basically what it is. So thank you all for tuning in. This will be up on IGTV just like that. I'll be back next Friday with a new live stream, and the week after will be the next podcast. Until then, go and catch up if you haven't, or don't. But whatever you do, enjoy the Friday night. It's going to be 65 tomorrow, so I'll be outside on my bike, hopefully. Yeah, definitely chill. I was going to say, if you like this video, then you'll pop up in my notifications and I will follow you. That's the thing, because I say I will and then I might forget because I'm freaking old now. But yeah, thank you so much, and I will talk to you again sooner than later, but enjoy the rest of the night and the weekend. Later.